The shovel struck something hard beneath the rocky soil, something that had been waiting 12,000 years to destroy Karen Patterson's perfect world. As the archaeologist's brush swept away millennia of dirt, revealing the curved edge of an ancient skull, Sarah Chen felt the earth shift beneath her feet. Not just literally, but everything she thought she knew about her worthless inheritance, her bitter neighbor's relentless harassment, and the true value of the land Karen had spent 3 years trying to steal from her. In 24 hours, woman who'd called her property a useless pile of rocks fit only for garbage would discover that those rocks were hiding the most significant paleontological find in North American history, and Sarah was about to become very, very rich. The county assessment notice trembled in Sarah Chen's hands as Karen Patterson's voice cut through the morning air like a rusty blade. $300,000 in back taxes? On that dump. Karen's laugh was sharp enough to shatter glass. She stood at the property line, her perfectly manicured hands planted on her hips, designer sunglasses reflecting the harsh Nevada sun. Honey, I wouldn't pay $300 for that useless pile of rocks you call land. Sarah's jaw clenched as she folded the notice and shoved it into her pocket. The morning had started badly enough, discovering that her grandmother's property taxes had gone unpaid for 5 years, accumulating interest and penalties that now threatened to consume every penny of her teacher's salary for the next decade. But Karen's presence made everything exponentially worse. It's not your concern, Karen, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice level as she walked toward the small trailer that had been her home for the past 6 months. Oh, but it is my concern. Karen's heels clicked against the asphalt as she followed. Along the fence line. Property values, neighborhood standards. Your little shanty town affects everyone. When the county seizes this land for unpaid taxes, I'll make sure it goes to someone who actually cares about community image. Sarah spun around, her patience finally snapping. You mean someone like you? How convenient that you've been circling like a vulture ever since I inherited this place. Karen's smile was predatory. I prefer to think of myself as forward-thinking. This entire area is ripe for development. Luxury homes, maybe a golf course. Your grandmother was too stubborn to see the potential, and apparently stupidity runs in the family. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her grandmother, my Chen, had owned these 40 acres for 30 years, purchased with her life savings after immigrating from Taiwan. She'd cultivated a small garden in the rocky soil, raised chickens, lived simply but proudly. To hear her, memory dismissed so callously made Sarah's vision blur with rage. My grandmother was worth 10 of you, Sarah said, her voice deadly quiet. Your grandmother was a hoarder who let this place turn into an eyesore, Karen shot back. Look around you, Sarah. Really look. Rocks, scrub brush, and dust. Even the experts agree. I had a geological survey done last year. This land is completely worthless. The soil's too alkaline for agriculture, too unstable for construction. It's literally good for nothing except maybe a landfill. Sarah's chest tightened. She'd suspected Karen was behind the mysterious survey trucks she'd seen on neighboring properties, but to hear it confirmed so casually was infuriating. You had no right. I had every right to survey my own property and the adjacent areas, Karen interrupted. And what we found was exactly what everyone already knew. Your little inheritance is worthless, sweetheart. A geological dead zone. The sooner you accept that and sell to someone who can actually do something productive with it, the better off everyone will be. The sound of an approaching truck interrupted their argument. Both women turned to see a dusty Ford pickup pulling into Sarah's driveway, followed by a smaller sedan. Sarah frowned, not recognizing either vehicle. A tall woman with graying hair climbed out of the truck, followed by a younger man carrying what looked like surveying equipment. The woman approached with a purposeful stride, her weathered face serious but kind. Ms. Chen, I'm Dr. Rebecca Martinez, from the University of Nevada's Paleontology Department. This is my research assistant, David Kim. We tried calling, but paleontology. Karen's voice dripped with disdain. What could you possibly want with this wasteland? Dr. Martinez glanced at Karen briefly before focusing on Sarah. We received an interesting call yesterday from a hiker who was exploring the area. He found some bone fragments that caught his attention and brought them to our lab. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small plastic bag containing what looked like pieces of weathered stone. These aren't stone, Ms. Chen. They are fossilized bone. Very old fossilized bone. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Fossils? Here. The preliminary analysis suggests these fragments could be from the Pleistocene era, possibly even earlier. We'd like your permission to conduct a more thorough survey of your property. Karen stepped forward, her face flushed with sudden alarm. Now wait just a minute. I had professional geologists survey this entire area. They found nothing but worthless rock and alkaline soil. Dr. Martinez turned to Karen with raised eyebrows. Were they looking for paleontological indicators? Because standard geological surveys don't typically assess fossil potential. The color drained from Karen's face. They were looking for mineral deposits, soil composition, development viability. Different expertise entirely, Dr. Martinez said with a slight smile. Ms. Chen, what we are potentially looking at here could be extremely significant. The bone fragments show characteristics consistent with megafauna from the last ice age. If there's a complete skeleton, or better yet, multiple specimens, this could be one of the most important paleontological sites discovered in Nevada in decades. Sarah's mind reeled. What? What would that mean? For the land, I mean. Well, first we'd need to confirm what we are dealing with. But if this proves to be a significant fossil site, there would be several options. The state might be interested in purchasing the land for preservation. Universities would certainly want to conduct extensive research. There are also private collectors and museums that pay substantial sums for access to sites like this. Karen's voice was barely a whisper. How substantial? Dr. Martinez shrugged. Hard to say without knowing what we are dealing with. But significant paleontological sites can be worth millions. Sometimes tens of millions, depending on what's found. The assessment notice in Sarah's pocket suddenly felt like it weighed nothing. At all. She looked at Karen, whose face had gone from smug to stricken in the span of 30 seconds. You said this land was worthless, Sarah said slowly. Karen's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. You said it was good for nothing but a landfill. A geological dead zone. Sarah's voice grew stronger with each word. You've been harassing me for months, telling me I should sell because this property has no value. Sarah, you had surveys done. Professional surveys that somehow missed the possibility that this land might contain some of the most significant fossils in North America. Dr. Martinez looked between the two women with growing interest. Ms. Chen, I take it your neighbor, has been encouraging you to sell. Encouraging is a generous word, Sarah said, her eyes never leaving Karen's face. She's been telling everyone in town that my property is worthless, that I'm stupid for trying to keep it, that the smartest thing I could do would be to cut my losses and sell to someone who could actually make use of such useless land. Karen's face had gone completely white. Sarah, listen. No, you listen. Sarah stepped closer, and for the first time in 6 months, she felt like she was the one in control. You've spent half a year making my life hell, calling code enforcement about every little thing, spreading rumors about property values, telling anyone who would listen that I was dragging down the neighborhood. I was just trying to help. You were trying to steal my land. The words came out with crystalline clarity. You knew something, didn't you? The geological survey you commissioned, what exactly were they looking for? Karen's silence stretched long enough to be damning. Dr. Martinez pulled out a notebook. Ms. Chen, would you mind if I asked you a few questions about the history of this property? Sometimes local knowledge can provide valuable context for potential sites. Of course, Sarah said, still staring at Karen. Has anyone ever found unusual rocks or formations on this land? Anything that seemed out of place? Sarah thought back to her childhood visits to her grandmother's property. My grandmother used to tell stories about strange stones she'd find. She thought they looked like sleeping animals. She kept a collection of them on her porch. Dr. Martinez's eyes lit up. Do you still have those stones? They're in the storage shed. I thought they were just rocks. Could we take a look? As they walked toward the small shed behind the trailer, Karen remained frozen by the fence line. Sarah could feel her neighbor's eyes boring into her back, but for the first time in months, she didn't care what Karen Patterson thought. The shed was cramped and dusty, filled with her grandmother's belongings that Sarah hadn't had the heart to sort through. But she remembered the collection of unusual stones displayed on a makeshift shelf her grandfather had built decades ago. "Here," Sarah said, pointing to the shelf. 3 days after Dr. Martinez's visit, Sarah's quiet trailer had become the epicenter of a meteor storm she never could have imagined. News vans lined the dirt road leading to her property, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like metallic flowers seeking sunlight. Reporters clutched coffee cups and notebooks, their voices creating a constant hum of speculation and excitement. Sarah peered through her window blinds at the chaos outside, her phone buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. The local news had picked up the story first: teacher inherits $1 million fossil site, but by yesterday evening, national outlets had arrived. CNN, Fox News, even a crew from the Discovery Channel. A sharp knock on her door made her jump. Through the peephole, she saw a man in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the desert wind. "Ms. Chen, I'm Richard Blackwood from Blackwood Development Corporation. I'd like to discuss a business proposition that could benefit us both." Sarah's stomach clenched. She'd been expecting this. Word of the potential fossil site had spread beyond the scientific community, and now the real vultures were circling. She opened the door but kept the chain latch engaged. "I'm not interested in selling, Mr. Blackwood." His smile was practiced, professional, and completely cold. "I understand your position, Ms. Chen, but you haven't heard my offer. $50 million. Cash. Immediate transfer." The number hit her like a physical blow. Sarah's teaching salary was $43,000 a year. $50 million was more money than she could spend in several lifetimes. "The property isn't for sale," she managed. "Ms. Chen, I'm going to be frank with you. The paleontological value of this land is entirely speculative. Yes, they've found some interesting bones, but there's no guarantee there's anything more significant buried here. What I'm offering is guaranteed money, right now, before the excitement dies down and you're left with nothing but a pile of old bones that universities will want to study for free." Through the gap in the door, Sarah could see Karen Patterson, standing in her front yard, her arms crossed, watching the conversation with obvious interest. Even from a distance, Sarah could read the desperate hope in her neighbor's posture. "I said no, Mr. Blackwood." His smile faltered slightly. "Perhaps. You don't understand the full situation. Property development is complex, Ms. Chen. There are environmental impact studies, zoning challenges, community opposition. Even if this fossil site proves significant, the legal battles over land use could tie up your property for decades. You could find yourself spending more on lawyers than you'd ever make from tourism or research grants." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Sarah's grip tightened on the doorframe. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Blackwood?" "I'm educating you about reality. This isn't some fairy tale where the poor teacher suddenly becomes rich. This is business, and business is complicated. My offer eliminates all that complexity. Clean, simple, profitable." Before Sarah could respond, another voice cut through the morning air. "Ms. Chen, could I have a word?" Sarah looked past Blackwood to see Dr. Martinez approaching, her expression grim. Behind her walked a woman Sarah didn't recognize, tall, authoritative, wearing a badge clipped to her jacket. "Mr. Blackwood," Dr. Martinez said coolly, "I see you've heard about our discovery." Blackwood's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something harder underneath. "Dr. Martinez. Always a pleasure. I was just explaining to Ms. Chen the realities of land development in Nevada." "Were you?" The woman with the badge stepped forward. "I'm Agent Sarah Reeves, FBI Art Crime Team. We investigate thefts and frauds involving cultural artifacts and historically significant sites." Sarah's world tilted. "FBI?" Agent Reeves nodded. "We received some interesting information yesterday about potential fraud related to this property. Mr. Blackwood, I believe we need to have a conversation about your geological surveys in this area." Blackwood's face went pale, but his voice remained steady. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Really?" Agent Reeves pulled out a tablet and swiped to a document. "Because we have records showing that your company commissioned extensive ground-penetrating radar surveys of this property and the surrounding area 8 months ago. Surveys that specifically identified subsurface anomalies consistent with fossil deposits." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. 8 months ago. But Karen said, Karen Patterson was paid $50,000 as a consulting fee by Blackwood Development. Agent Reeves continued. Officially for neighborhood relations and property assessment. Unofficially, it appears she was paid to harass you into selling your land for well below market value. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Sarah turned to look at Karen, who had gone from hopeful to horrified in the span of 30 seconds. You knew, Sarah whispered, then louder. You knew about the fossils 8 months ago. Karen started walking toward them, her hands raised defensively. Sarah, let me explain. You've been lying to me for months. Sarah's voice cracked with fury, telling me the land was worthless, calling me stupid for keeping it, making my life hell, and you knew the entire time that it could be worth millions. Dr. Martinez stepped closer to Sarah. There's more. We ran additional tests on your grandmother's fossil collection. Some of those specimens are extraordinary. The saber-tooth skull fragment? It's the most complete cranium ever found of that species. The ground sloth bones show evidence of human interaction, cut marks that suggest early humans may have hunted these animals. This site isn't just valuable, Ms. Chen. It could rewrite our understanding of human migration to North America. Blackwood cleared his throat. This is all very interesting, but it doesn't change the fundamental economics of the situation. Ms. Chen, you're still looking at years of uncertainty, legal challenges, and, Mr. Blackwood, Agent Reeves interrupted. You need to stop talking. Right now. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But fraud, conspiracy, and attempted theft of cultural artifacts are federal crimes. I'd suggest you contact your lawyer. Blackwood's composure finally cracked. He turned to Sarah with desperation creeping into his voice. Ms. Chen, my offer stands. $50 million, cash, today. Whatever these people are telling you, you need to think about your future. Your security. My security. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean like the security I was supposed to have as a property owner? Before you and Karen conspired to steal my land. We didn't steal anything, Karen said, finally reaching the group. Her designer clothes looked wrinkled, her perfect hair disheveled. We made you a business offer. You could have said yes. After you lied to me for months. Sarah's voice rose to near shouting. After you called my grandmother a hoarder. After you told everyone in town that I was too stupid to know when I was beaten. Dr. Martinez put a gentle hand on Sarah's arm. Ms. Chen, there's something else you should know. I've been in contact with the Smithsonian Institute and the National Geographic Society. They're both interested in this site. Very interested. We are talking about a long-term research partnership that could provide substantial funding for excavation while ensuring you retain ownership of the land. How substantial? Sarah asked. The initial grants alone would be worth several $millions annually. And that's just the beginning. If this site proves to be what we think it is, you're looking at tourism revenue, documentary deals, book rights, museum partnerships. Done correctly, this could provide income for generations. Sarah looked at Blackwood, whose $50 million offer suddenly seemed insulting rather than generous, and the legal challenges Mr. Blackwood mentioned. Agent Reeves smiled grimly. Federal protection of paleontologically significant sites is well-established law. Anyone who tries to interfere with legitimate scientific research on protected sites faces serious criminal charges. The threat was clear, and Blackwood seemed to understand it. His jaw worked silently for several moments before he turned and walked back toward his car without another word. Karen remained, looking smaller than Sarah had ever seen her. Sarah. She said quietly, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? Sarah asked. Just far enough to steal my inheritance? Far enough to destroy my life? How far was enough, Karen? I thought you'd be happier with the money. I thought you didn't really want this place anyway. So you decided to make that choice for me, after lying to my face for months. Dr. Martinez checked her. Watch. Ms. Chen, I hate to interrupt, but we have a problem. Word about the significance of this site is spreading quickly in academic circles. By tomorrow, there could be unauthorized dig teams trying to access your property. We need to establish security and legal protections immediately. What kind of security? Federal protection. This site is now officially under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Interior. We can have agents here within hours to secure the perimeter and prevent any unauthorized access. Sarah nodded, feeling overwhelmed by the rapid pace of events. 3 days ago, she'd been a broke schoolteacher facing financial ruin. Now she was apparently the owner of a nationally significant archaeological site under federal protection, with agents and scientists treating her like some kind of VIP. There's one more thing, Agent Ray. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood in the conference room of Morrison, Blake and Associates, staring at a contract that would have seemed impossible just days earlier. The mahogany table was covered with documents, research agreements, media rights, contracts, tourism development proposals, and a preliminary settlement offer that made her head spin. $37 million, her lawyer, James Morrison, repeated patiently. That's just the opening settlement from Blackwood Developments. Insurance company. They want to avoid a trial. Sarah's hands trembled as she picked up the contract. And this doesn't prevent criminal prosecution. Not at all. The civil settlement is separate from the federal charges. Agent Reeves made it clear that the Justice Department is moving forward regardless of any financial agreements. Through the conference room's glass wall, Sarah could see the media circus that had taken over downtown Carson City. News trucks, protesters with signs reading "Protect Our Heritage" and "Corporate criminals go to jail," and what seemed like half the paleontology departments from universities across the country. There's more, Morrison continued, sliding another document across the table. National Geographic wants exclusive documentary rights. HBO is interested in a limited series. And the Smithsonian has formally requested to partner with you on the excavation. Sarah shook her head in disbelief. 3 weeks ago, I was about to lose everything to back taxes. Now you're telling me I'm going to be rich enough to buy half of Nevada. Richer than that, probably. The initial fossil assessment came back. Yesterday. Morrison's expression grew serious. Sarah, what they've found on your property, it's unprecedented. Complete skeletons of at least 17 different species from the Pleistocene era. Evidence of human habitation dating back 15,000 years. Your grandmother's land isn't just a fossil site. It's possibly the most significant archaeological discovery in North American history. A knock on the conference room door interrupted them. Morrison's secretary peered in nervously. Mr. Morrison, there's a Karen Patterson here. She says it's urgent and she needs to speak with Ms. Chen. Sarah's stomach clenched. She hadn't spoken to Karen since the day Agent Reeves had taken her statement. According to the local news, Karen had been formally charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and was facing up to 15 years in federal prison. I don't want to see her, Sarah said. Sarah, please. Karen's voice came from behind the secretary. She looked haggard, her usually perfect appearance replaced by dark circles under her eyes and clothes that seemed too big for her shrinking frame. Just 5 minutes. I'm begging you. Morrison stood protectively. Ms. Patterson, my client doesn't want to speak with you. You should discuss this through your attorney. My attorney fired me, Karen said desperately. I can't afford legal representation anymore. They froze all my assets pending the investigation. Sarah, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I need to explain. Against her better judgment, Sarah felt a flicker of pity. 5 minutes, she said. That's all. Karen entered the room like she was walking to her execution. She sat across from Sarah, her hands shaking as she placed them on the polished table. They're going to destroy me, Karen said without preamble. The federal prosecutors, the civil lawsuits, the media. I'm going to lose everything. My house, my business, my reputation. Everything I spent 20 years building. Good, Sarah said coldly. You tried to do the same thing to me. I know, and I'm sorry. But Sarah, you have to understand, I never meant for it to go this far. When Blackwood first approached me with the survey results, it seemed like a business opportunity, a chance for both of us to profit. By lying to me for months, by making me think I was losing my mind, by trying to steal my inheritance. Karen's composure cracked. I was desperate. Do you think it's easy being a 50-year-old divorced woman trying to maintain a lifestyle in a town where everyone knows your ex-husband left you for his 25-year-old secretary? I needed money, Sarah. Real money. And when Blackwood showed me what was under your land. You decided to take it instead of telling me the truth. I thought you'd be happy with $100,000. Karen's voice rose desperately. I thought you'd take the money and move somewhere you'd be more comfortable. I never imagined you'd fight so hard for a place you'd only lived in for 6 months. Sarah leaned forward, her voice deadly quiet. That place isn't just where I lived. Karen, it's where my grandmother spent 30 years of her life. It's where she grew her garden, raised her chickens, collected her sleeping animal stones. It's the only thing she left me that connected me to her memory. And you tried to steal it based on the assumption that I was too stupid or too weak to fight back. Tears ran down Karen's cheeks. I made a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. But prison, Sarah? 15 years in federal prison? I'll be 70 when I get out, if I get out. My life will be over. Morrison cleared his throat. Ms. Patterson, if you're here to ask my client to intervene on your behalf, you should know that Ms. Chen has no influence over federal prosecutors. The charges against you are based on evidence, not vindictiveness. But she could speak for me, Karen said desperately. Tell them I'm not a bad person, just someone who made a poor choice. Sarah, we were neighbors. We barbecued together once. Remember? Last 4th of July, before all this started. Sarah did remember. It seemed like a lifetime ago, Karen bringing over expensive steaks, talking about community improvement projects, seeming genuinely friendly. Now she realized it had all been manipulation, softening her up for the eventual pressure campaign. I remember, Sarah said. I also remember you calling my grandmother a hoarder. I remember you telling the whole neighborhood that I was dragging down property values. I remember you laughing at me when I got the tax assessment, telling me my land was worthless pile of rocks fit only for garbage. Karen flinched at each accusation. I was playing a role, trying to convince you to sell. I thought if I made you feel isolated, unwanted, you thought if you made me miserable enough, I'd give up and hand over my inheritance for pennies on the dollar. Sarah's voice grew stronger. Karen, do you understand what you put me through? The sleepless nights, the anxiety attacks, the constant stress of feeling like everyone in town thought I was a failure. I'm sorry. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? Karen's silence was answer enough. Morrison's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Sarah, we have a problem. Agent Reeves is on her way up. Apparently there's been a development in the case. Before anyone could respond, Agent Reeves entered the conference room, her expression grim. Behind her walked a man Sarah didn't recognize. Tall, thin, wearing an expensive suit that screamed federal prosecutor. Ms. Chen, Ms. Patterson, Agent Reeves nodded. This is Assistant U.S. Attorney David Park from the Justice Department. He has some news about the investigation. Park opened a briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Ms. Patterson, I'm here to inform you that the charges against you have been expanded. We've discovered evidence that this wasn't the first time you've been involved in schemes to defraud property owners. Karen's face went white. What are you talking about? Over the past 5 years, you've been involved in at least 6 similar situations. Property owners facing financial difficulties, mysterious problems with permits and inspections, eventual sales to companies connected to Blackwood development. You've been running a systematic fraud operation targeting vulnerable homeowners. Sarah felt sick. 6 other people. 6 other families, Park confirmed. Elderly couple in Reno lost their ranch to back taxes after suddenly failing septic inspections. Young family in Tahoe sold their vacation home after a series of code violations that appeared out of nowhere. In each case, Ms. Patterson was involved in the harassment campaign, and each property was ultimately purchased by shell companies connected to Blackwood development. Karen's hands were shaking so violently she could barely speak. That's not. I was just doing consulting work. I didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing, Park interrupted. We have recordings, Ms. Patterson. Phone calls between you and Blackwood planning these campaigns. Email discussions about which families would be easiest to break. You referred to it as softening the target. Sarah stared at Karen in horror. This is who you really are. This is what you do for a living. You destroy families. Sarah, please, how many people lost their homes because of you? How many? Families were torn apart by your harassment campaigns. Agent Reeves pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a photograph. This is the Martinez family from Reno. They lost their ranch, land that had been in their family for 4 generations, after Ms. Patterson orchestrated a campaign of code violations and harassment. The father had a heart attack from the stress. He's still in a care facility. Sarah's vision blurred with rage. You gave someone a heart attack. Karen was sobbing now. I didn't know he was sick. I didn't know. You didn't care, Sarah said with crystalline clarity. You saw vulnerable people and you decided to destroy them for money. You're not just a fraud, Karen. You're a predator. Park closed his briefcase. Ms. Patterson, you're looking at expanded federal charges including racketeering, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit mail fraud. Instead of 15 years, you are. 6 months after the discovery that changed everything, Sarah stood on the observation deck of her newly constructed visitor center, watching as tourists from around the world marveled at the excavation site that had once been her grandmother's vegetable garden. The Chen Paleontological Preserve stretched across her 40 acres, with covered dig sites, walking trails, and educational displays that told the story of Ice Age America. Below, she could see Dr. Martinez leading a group of schoolchildren past the massive skeleton of a saber-toothed cat, its bones carefully preserved exactly where they'd been found. The kids' excited voices carried on the desert wind, their wonder and enthusiasm a constant reminder of how dramatically her world had transformed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her financial advisor. HBO documentary deal finalized. $15 million for exclusive rights. Congratulations. Sarah smiled, pocketing the phone without responding. The money had stopped feeling real months ago. Between the settlement from Blackwood Development, the research partnerships, tourism revenue, and media deals, her accountant estimated her net worth at over $200 million. The struggling teacher who couldn't afford her property. Taxes had become one of the wealthiest people in Nevada. Ms. Chen. Her assistant, Maria, approached from the visitor center. There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Sarah frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone, and her security team usually screened all visitors carefully. The media attention had died down somewhat, but she still received dozens of requests for interviews every week. Who is it? A man named Robert Patterson. Says he's Karen Patterson's ex-husband. Sarah's stomach clenched. She hadn't heard Karen's name in months, not since the news reports about her sentencing. 32 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole for 25 years. Karen Patterson, the woman who had once seemed so powerful and untouchable, would likely die behind bars. Where is he? In the main lobby. Security check him thoroughly. He's not armed, doesn't seem hostile. Just desperate. Sarah descended to the lobby, her heels clicking on the polished stone floor. The visitor center was busy with afternoon. Tourists, families reading displays about prehistoric Nevada while their children pressed their faces against the glass walls overlooking the dig sites. Robert Patterson stood near the information desk, hat in hand, looking every bit as broken as his ex-wife had during their last meeting. He was thin, grey-haired, wearing clothes that had seen better days. When he saw Sarah approaching, relief flooded his weathered face. Ms. Chen, thank you for seeing me. I know you have no reason to, but I'm desperate. Mr. Patterson. Sarah kept her voice neutral. What can I do for you? It's Karen. She's not doing well in prison. The other inmates, they know what she did. Targeting families, elderly people. They've made her life hell. She's been in solitary confinement for her own protection for 3 months. Sarah felt a flicker of something, not quite pity, but human recognition. I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't understand why you're telling me this. Because she's talking about ending it, about giving up. The guard's on suicide watch, but she's broken, Ms. Chen. Completely broken. Mr. Patterson, I appreciate that this is difficult for you, but Karen made her choices. She destroyed multiple families, caused someone to have a heart attack, tried to steal my inheritance through fraud and harassment. The consequences she's facing are the result of her own actions. Robert's eyes filled with tears. I know. God, I know she did terrible things. But she wasn't always like this. When we were married, when our daughter was young, she was different. Kinder. The divorce, the financial pressure, the social humiliation when I left her, it changed her into something I didn't recognize. You're asking me to feel sorry for someone who became a predator because her life got difficult? Mr. Patterson, my life was difficult too. I lost my grandmother, inherited debt I couldn't pay, faced losing my home. I didn't respond by destroying other families. I'm not asking you to excuse what she did, Robert said quickly. I'm asking you to consider showing mercy, not for her sake, but for yours. Sarah's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? You've won, Ms. Chen. You've won everything. You're wealthy, successful, famous. You've built something beautiful here, something that honors your grandmother's memory. Karen lost everything and will probably die in prison. But I can see what this obsession with justice is doing to you. Obsession? Sarah's voice turned dangerously quiet. I've read the interviews you've given. Every time someone asks about Karen, about the case, your whole demeanor changes. You become cold, angry. This need for revenge is eating at you, even though you've already won. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. Revenge? Mr. Patterson, I didn't seek revenge. I sought justice. Karen committed federal crimes against multiple families. She's in prison because that's where criminals belong. But you could speak for her. At the appeal hearing next month, you could ask for clemency, for a reduced sentence. One word from you, and what? She gets out early to prey on more families? She learns that actions don't have consequences if you can manipulate the right people. Robert stepped closer, his desperation palpable. She's 62 years old, Ms. Chen. By the time she's eligible for parole, she'll be 87. Even if she gets out, she'll be a broken old woman with nothing left. Isn't that punishment enough? Before Sarah could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. A woman in an expensive suit was arguing with security, her voice sharp and demanding. I don't care about your appointment system. I need to speak with Sarah Chen immediately. This is a legal matter. Sarah recognized the voice before she saw the face. Victoria Blackwood, Richard Blackwood's daughter and the new CEO of Blackwood Development Corporation. Excuse me, Mr. Patterson, Sarah said, walking toward the entrance. Victoria Blackwood was younger than Sarah had expected, probably mid-30s, with her father's cold eyes but sharper features. She dismissed the security guards with a wave and approached Sarah with predatory confidence. Ms. Chen, I'm Victoria Blackwood. I think we need to talk. About what? Your father's already in prison. Your company paid the settlement. As far as I'm concerned, we have nothing to discuss. Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. Oh, but we do. You see, while you've been playing archaeologist, I've been rebuilding Blackwood Development from the ground up. New investors, new projects, new approach. And I've discovered some interesting things about your little fossil preserve. Such as the fact that the mineral rights to this property were sold separately from the land rights back in 1987. Your grandmother bought the surface rights, but she never owned what's underneath. Sarah felt the floor shift beneath her feet. That's impossible. I've had lawyers review every document, lawyers who were looking for paleontological significance, not mineral rights. But my lawyers specialize in extraction rights, and they found something your people missed. Victoria pulled out a legal document. Blackwood Development holds the mineral rights to these 40 acres, purchased legally from the previous owner 38 years ago. Sarah's blood turned to ice. What are you saying? I'm saying that every fossil you've excavated, every bone you've displayed, every artifact you've used to build this little empire belongs to us. You've been stealing from Blackwood Development for 6 months. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Around them, tourists continued their leisurely exploration, children laughed at the educational displays, families took photos with prehistoric skeletons. None of them knew that Sarah's entire world might be collapsing. You're lying, Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Check with your lawyers. I'll wait. Victoria's smile grew wider. But while you're doing that, let me explain what's going to happen. You're going to return every fossil, every artifact, every piece of prehistoric material you've taken from this site. You're going to pay damages for the commercial exploitation of our property. and you're going to sign over the tourism and media rights to Blackwood development. And if I refuse, then I'll have federal marshals here tomorrow with seizure orders. I'll shut down your little museum, confiscate everything you've built, and sue you for hundreds of millions in damages. Your grandmother's land will be worthless again, and you'll be bankrupt within a year. Sarah stared at Victoria, seeing her father's ruthless ambition combined with a younger generation's complete lack of mercy. This wasn't just about money. This was about destroying Sarah as completely as possible, revenge for her role in bringing down the Blackwood Empire. Ms. Chen. Robert Patterson approached hesitantly. Is everything all right? Victoria glanced at him dismissively, then back at Sarah. You have 24 hours to decide. Cooperate, and you can keep the land. Fight me, and I'll destroy everything you've built just like you destroyed my father. As Victoria walked away, her heels clicking on the stone floor with predatory precision, Sarah felt the walls of a perfect new world beginning to crumble. The woman who had thought she'd won everything was about to discover that in the world of corporate warfare, victory was always temporary. And somewhere in federal prison, Karen Patterson might soon have company.